the Bruins are giving up on this 2024-2025 season. And I can't blame them. Those of us who have been watching this team from day one this year are not surprised by this. In fact, we could have told you a while ago that this is not, it's not working. It's not what it's supposed to be. You tried to get really one last bite at the apple. And by bite at the apple, I'm not even talking about Stanley Cup. I'm talking about, hey, maybe you win a round or two. And maybe this Zadorov and Lindholm thing, that'll be part of your next core. It couldn't be more wrong. They're not going to make the playoffs. Neither of those guys are going to be part of their core going forward, whether they're on the team or not. They're not going to be the core players. They'll be afterthoughts. They'll probably be dead weight, especially in the case of Elias Lindholm, but certainly Zadorov as well. And as the Bruins sit, they are technically only 1 point out of a playoff spot. It's a real log jam. They're 1 point behind Ottawa, who has a game at hand. They're a point behind Columbus, who has a game in hand. They're 1 point ahead of the Rangers, the lowly Rangers, who have a game in hand. And Montreal and the Islanders are still kind of there. They're a couple points behind the Bruins, but with a better roster. Montreal's playing I don't think Montreal's going to make the playoffs, but a more entertaining brand of hockey. And like Columbus, man. Columbus, the story of the year, their best player died in the summer. And they've got a better situation than the Bruins do right now. They've picked up the pieces. They've got they unleash a young kid in Zach Werenski, who is a legit Hart Trophy candidate this year. And here are the Bruins, and some fans who don't pay attention too closely are wondering, what? They're a point out of a playoff spot. The goalie gets hot. Anything can happen. I'm here to tell you that can't happen with this team. This team is just like, you could say a hot goalie can make a run, but tell me the last time you saw a team in the conference final or the Stanley Cup final with a first line that has players like Pavel Zacha and Morgan Geekie on it. I'll wait. Find me one. You can't do it, man. These guys are they're nice bottom six forwards, and they're playing on the first line with David Pastrnak. How about this D-core without Charlie McAvoy? You think that's going to get you to the playoffs? Because let's just go over what kind of the makeshift lineup was, what these lines were for the game the practice on Sunday, and basically what was the game against the Ducks. And they're facing the Leafs next, okay? These were the lines at Sunday practice with no Pastrnak or Marchand. Geekie, Zacha, Brazeau, Wahlstrom, Lindholm, Coyle, Koepke, Patra, Frederick, Tufte, Beecher, Kastelik. Now, you're going to have Pastrnak after March 7th. I don't know that you'll have Brad Marchand, so that gets a little bit better. But here are your long-term this is your long-term D-core, because Hampus Lindholm, as Don Sweeney announced, is not coming back. Charlie McAvoy, probably not coming back. 6-7 weeks left in the season. They're not making the playoffs. There's no reason for Charlie McAvoy to come back in this year. So the rest of your season, this is the D-core. Zadorov, Carlo. Hopefully not the end of the season that Carlo's on the team. Lowry and Peak, Callahan and Wotherspoon with Jordan Osterley as your extra guy. You're telling me that team can make a run? Oh, if they just get in. No, guys, let's be honest with ourselves. And so, yeah, Don Sweeney goes over that Hampus Lindholm is not coming back this year, which sucks for the Bruins, not because he won't be out on the ice, but because he won't be a viable trade chip. Would have been a good trade chip. It still might be in the summer if he recovers fine. With that cap hit and what he can still bring to a team. He's not a stud, but he can bring something. And Carlo, I think they need to move. I think Coyle, they need to move. Guys who are not on expirings but can fetch you something. And then the rest of these guys, just to hell with them. I'm sorry, but Beecher and Wotherspoon, someone will want him. He can give you some decent minutes. Brazeau, Geeky, if you can get something good for him, I'm still willing to listen to that. I like Geeky's versatility. I don't like him playing on the first line, but I think he could be like a third line 20-goal guy, which is something the Bruins haven't had in years. But you're coming to a decision where you're going to have to pay him. So anyway, we go back to January when Cam Neely basically said, what did he say? We might not, like, he doesn't like the term selling off or fire sale. No GM does, but we might think about retooling a little bit. And as soon as they started talking retooling, I was like, this is not going to be good. Because retooling is not the same as rebuilding. It's not the same as fire sale, which is what the Bruins need to be doing. Retooling is making a hockey trade or getting in this guy short term or this guy short term. And that is why you're in the spot that you're in. Connor Ryan, Boston.com, wrote a great article about how the Bruins have gotten to this point. And it's a rare situation where usually when you want to fire an executive or a coach, it's because they haven't gotten the job done and you don't like their style, especially the GM, right? Like, how often do you just say, I like the guy's style, he's not good at it, though? That's what Don Sweeney's been. Like, no one is just crushing Don Sweeney for going all in the last 5 or 6 years. They've had teams that were good enough to warrant that kind of investment at the trade deadline and give up draft capital. We don't mind that. It's just the fact that it hasn't worked out, A, and B, Don Sweeney does not have the eye for talent to make those kind of moves and succeed long-term. He doesn't. Because when he does have draft picks, he completely wastes them. He has bad free agent signings time and time again and has had some bad extensions and is clearly not good at picking a coach because he ran Bruce Cassidy out of town. And yes, some of the players are culpable for that too. Krejci, DeBrusk, Bergeron. But Don Sweeney fires him, brings in Jim Montgomery, and the players don't like him either. And so it's like, what's the problem here? They were sick of Claude, and then they didn't like Bruce Cassidy, and then they didn't like Jim Montgomery. And the only things that are ever present in all of that are the core players and the early playoff exits. All of them. But now you like, rent is due. Everyone else has to rebuild. Pittsburgh's going to rebuild. Like think of the best teams of this generation, right? Pittsburgh's going to have to rebuild. Chicago has been rebuilding. You know, Detroit has been rebuilding for 10 years. Vancouver's been rebuilding for 10 years for the better part of it. They've had some ups here. But like that's what you're faced with. They come to collect from everybody. And you use those short-term moves to try and make your team better. And in a very short term, it might have, but also you didn't get any farther. You know, you went to the final once with all those really talented teams. You went to the final one time and you blew it. So let's just look over Don Sweeney when he's kind of left to his own devices. And what I mean by that is not a trade, but he either has money or he has draft picks. Let's see what happens there. And this first part's from the Connor Ryan column. He said, be it trying to accelerate a retool from 2015 to 17 and attempting to put a roster anchored by franchise stalwarts like Bergeron, Chara, Krejci, Tuukka Rask over the top, Sweeney and company have relinquished draft capital in search of immediate results. Those efforts resulted in names like Lee Stepniak, Drew Stafford, Rick Nash, Charlie Coyle, Marcus Johansson, Andre Kasha, first-round pick, Taylor Hall, Hampus Lindholm, Dmitry Orlov, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Pat Maroon. A couple hits in there, a lot of misses. Andre Kasha, first-round pick. How'd that work for you? You know, Johansson was a good depth piece on that team that went to the final. Coyle was a good depth piece on the team that went to the final. Orlov, I thought, was terrific for them in that half season, but it didn't make them any better. They didn't go anywhere. So, all right, we've already got that. And that's the trade deadline deals. So left to his own devices, free agent signings. Which one of these is your favorite? Matt Bolesky, Jimmy Hayes, the late Jimmy Hayes, David Backes, Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov? Any of those tickle your fancy? Any of them? He's had one good free agent signing. It was Linus Ullmark. That's really it. The only other good ones he's had is when Danton Heinen gives you a decent year at the veterans minimum last year. That's it. When he's left with money, he makes the wrong decision. And I guess we can put Swayman in there. I mean, I think Swayman's still going to be a part of your future, but the jury's still out there, I guess. And then there's draft picks when he's also left to his own devices. Here are the Bruins' first-round picks and or top draft picks since Don Sweeney took over. And we're going to go only to 22 because the last two, tough to judge yet, 23 and the 23 and 24 picks. 2015, we all know that one. 3 first-round picks all in a row. Jacob Zboril, Jake DeBrusk, and Zach Senyshyn. Can't pronounce his name because he never fucking played for the team. 16, Charlie McAvoy, good pick. Also in the first round, Trent Frederick. Okay. 17, first-round pick, Urho Vakanainen. That worked out. 18, Axel Anderson was their first pick at 57 because you traded a draft pick for Rick Nash. Axel Anderson. Bruins great, of course. 2019 at 30, you pick Johnny Beecher. You say in the first round, you say, oh, we hope he could be a good third, fourth liner for us. That's what you say to a first-round pick. Great job. And he is. He's not a good fourth liner for you, but he is certainly a fourth liner. In fact, he's such a fourth liner that he probably wouldn't be playing in the NHL if he was playing for almost any other team in the league. 2020, your first pick is 58th overall, Mason Lowride. Having a really tough year, but someone who could be part of their future, absolutely. 21, Fabian Lysell. You have a picture of him in a Boston Bruins uniform? Sell that one. Pretty damn rare. 0 points. They won't even bring the kid up. 2 picks later, the Dallas Stars pick Wyatt Johnston. Just keep that in your memory. And then 2022 is Matt Patra at 54th overall. So if we look at this, the forwards he's developed that are still on the team, and not a huge period of time, 10 years here, Johnny Beecher and Matt Patra and Trent Frederick. That's it. That's what we're talking about with Don Sweeney here. So a rebuild, and I'm not talking a retool, I'm talking a rebuild, should not be surprising at this point. Because all of those combined players that I just listed there that are still on the team have combined for 192 points in 10 years. Trent Frederick has 110 of them. Wyatt Johnston, who's picked a couple spots behind Fabian Lysell, he's got 156 points in 3 seasons by himself. Your forwards in 9 seasons, let's call it, that are still on the team have 192 points. It's an absolute failure. It's a dumpster fire. They need to strip it all the way down. And he's still not saying whether they're going to trade Marchand. Of course he's not. That would be stupid if he's like, yeah, we're shopping Marchand around. But again, I look at Frederick, I look at Brazeau, Coyle, Lindholm, Beecher, Marchand, Wotherspoon, Osterley, Carlo. It's like, which one of those guys you're like, no, damn it, we need to keep him? Nobody. They're all expendable. You're probably not trading Pasternak, McAvoy, Swayman, and that's it. That's it. Blow it up. And I'm glad they're actually realizing this before the trade deadline, because that was my worst fear, was that they weren't going to realize it. Bruins, white flag. See you next year.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.